going. I know, end of the day, brains are full. I'm pretty sure if I had like 1/1000th the energy of Buddy Berry, I'd probably be able to get through many days like this. I mean, that guy's energy is contagious. I love it, and that's kind of what I love about these conferences, if you can feed off the energy of others. My name is Patrick Donovan. I'm the tech coach at Ames High School over in Ames. You might have heard of us, especially after last week. But, you know, we're going to talk about, really it's accessibility tools. But it's also about accessibility mindset and other processes along that. The title I had for this is actually, you know, think about when you had to submit sessions for iTech. It was like due before July 1st. And the thing was that a little bit before the due date, I was at ISTE this year, and I did Ignite for the first time. Those who know Ignite, it's a 5-minute talk, and it was this title. So pretty much the 5-minute Ignite that I created became a 50-minute presentation, although if you want the 5-minute one, if you're a member of ISTE, you can go watch that. This is going to be a little different, but same kind of thing, the same reasons why I think this is a very important topic. And again, you know, I know there are a lot of flashier sessions out there today, but honestly, with the technology that we have in our students' hands, we have to know how can we make all learning accessible for our students. Now, projector I think needs a little bit of work here, so it's kind of hard to see. I actually had my son help me with this a little bit. I had this idea, I'm like, all right, I told my son, he's 7, his birthday's tomorrow, so I have to make sure I get a good present since I'm not going to be home until like 5 or so. But I asked him, like, all right, I want you to build me a Lego guy, and I want you to think about the most powerful, the best equipped Lego guy you can. So he pulled out this guy. It's hard to see, I know, because it looks better online. He has like 4 arms, he has multiple weapons, he's big, you know. That's his powerful weapon guy. And I say this is what people think the ideal student is in our schools. Now, I typically talk about the traditional classroom, since that still occupies most classrooms out there. But if the student comes in with the prior background knowledge, the ability to get work in on time, to follow directions, the ability to hear, to see, to read well, and all of these things, they're probably going to pass all classes, whether or not they're smart or not. I mean, really, we think about a lot of students can pass and play the game of school because they have the right abilities, the right traits. But the thing is, oops, wrong button. Our students don't all come with these ideal settings. You know, this again, I asked my son to give me 3 Lego guys that may not be as good as his best one. They're missing something, or something's different about them. So the one on the left has no hands, the one on the right has no head, and the one in the middle just doesn't have any weapons. Now the thing is that our students, in the real world, they have some physical, some mental, some social, some cognitive, something that makes it so that learning can't happen as easy as it can for their peers. That our students all have something that makes them unique. Doesn't make them worse, it makes them them. That's me in elementary school, early elementary school. I don't know if it's first grade, second grade, somewhere around that. I had to ask my mom to look for this picture. But it's hard to see by my ear there, my right ear, you're going to see a hearing aid. Because when I was in early elementary school, I required a hearing aid in order to be able to learn. My hearing was horrible on the right side, it wasn't 100% left side. And so in the regular classroom, I can't hear the teacher, I can't hear the other students. This is again where you're learning and acquiring language, so I couldn't speak as well as everybody else. And so that impacted my learning. It made it very difficult for me to learn like everybody else. And for a while, that meant I got pulled out for special speech classes. I always had to sit right in the front of the room. And no matter what, I had trouble hearing. And actually about 2 weeks ago, I got sick with a cold. And I don't wear a hearing aid anymore, probably should. That's the hearing test later this year. And I actually pretty much lost hearing in my right ear again. Just because I had fluid buildup, it was a cold, boom, I was back to that. You know, I really, without that piece of technology, I would not be able to learn. And I got to share this story at ISTE this summer, in front of about 1,300 people on stage, 5 minutes talking about this. And to me, that's one of the best things about this, is I went from that kid who could barely hear and thus couldn't speak well, and I still have issues because of that today, to on stage getting to share that. Because it did impact my learning. It made me have to learn differently. So my issue again was hearing. But I have a lot of friends who had similar issues in that case. For me, the technology to make it so I could learn was both expensive which means that not everybody could afford it, and it made me stand out. Because although that picture, it looks small, to the rest of the kids in the classroom, to me, it was big. It's kind of like this giant spotlight pointing me out as something different. And the worst part was this hearing aid malfunction at times. There'd be a high-pitched noise being created from it. I can't hear it, but other people could, and so they have to tell me it's going off again. Well, you know, yeah, I got picked on, I got bullied because of that piece of technology. Technology I need in order to learn. A few years back, I was still in the classroom. You know, I was teaching a science course, and I had an EA in my room, an aide, next to me who had to sign out everything I said because I had a student in my classroom who was very deaf. I mean, pretty much he was almost 100% deaf. He had an implant that improved it somewhat, but he still needed a special ed aide to sign for him. And that's an extreme case. See, my case was a piece of technology and I could learn. The extreme case, we're talking about a kid who is deaf, a kid who is blind, or maybe a kid who is profoundly disabled. I'm not going to be talking about those students today, because that's a very small percentage. The students I want to talk about actually occupy a much larger percentage of this. And we have technology in every kid's hands. I mean, pretty much over half the districts in Iowa are one-to-one. We have a Chromebook at least, maybe an iPad, you know, or even just their phone. I mean, every kid, pretty much middle school on, pretty much comes in with a smart device, a computer in their pocket every day. And there's things built into that technology which can make learning more accessible to them. And so we think about our students. The number of students that have some sort of learning disability, or the students who have something that's maybe hearing, a vision, or some other issue. There are some students that have both, but most of these students don't. And you start to think about how many students that is. I mean, just even colorblind students, 8% of your males are colorblind. 0.5% of females are colorblind. But how many times do we actually think about that? I mean, 8%, that should be a very big number. I mean, it should be a number we actually pay attention to, but it's not always something we look at. Now, bringing your kids who can't see well, can't hear well, they have a social anxiety issue, or they have some other issue that causes them to learn differently, it adds up to a lot of students. One of my friends, who I got to meet last year at the Google Innovator Academy I was at, she's going to be deaf in a short while. So her focus right now is about creating accessibility. So we're going to talk about that as we're talking about the tools. The tools are how we can make something that's currently out there accessible, but we also got to talk about how can I then also make something more accessible. Because if I'm producing something, I'm creating something for my students, I need to be aware of how can I make this more accessible to them. So her website, her blog is createaccessibility.com. She's doing a lot of this. And so we have kind of slightly similar but also different perspective, because I'm going off my past issues with hearing, and she knows where she's going. She's going to be deaf. So that takes a different look when she's looking at everything we do in our classroom with her situation. So one of the first things we can talk about, and I think one of the easiest tools out there, is a text-to-speech tool. Because you go back 10 years, this was probably a difficult thing, an expensive thing. Nowadays, it's built into almost everything. On the right there, you see the iOS operating system. It's built into that. Text-to-speech is there. You can actually turn it on, so it'll read everything on the screen. On the top there is just from my MacBook. Built into that. And then down here, well, that's actually from my Chromebook. So pretty much at any device I work on during the day, it has built-in text-to-speech features, built into the devices. We can also buy, so where that's built in and free, kind of what you're doing, there are some tools that can take that a lot further, and they do cost money sometimes, and I only put that in there because, well, my district, we pay for Snap and Read, that's on the left here, and Snap and Read works really well at reading things. So if I go on my computer, so I gotta go and switch over to my, here we go, let's go to like this. Snap and Read, I have a few Chrome extensions, so let me see if I can find it. Snap and Read, okay. Now I turned it off. Once I turn it on, it will give me a couple different tool options. And the basic one is that I can highlight the text, it'll start reading it. And it uses kind of the built-in voices on your device. So a Chromebook has a different set of voices than a MacBook and an iPad. But pretty much, if I, let's say, even on this Google Doc, I'm going to turn on my snap and read. There we go. Oh, sorry, I forgot that my personal computer did set up. So we're just going to talk about what it looks like, otherwise it takes so long. But pretty much it gives me a couple options. One of those is I can highlight the text and it'll start reading it. I can change the voice, I can change the speed, I can change the pitch. So it gives me a lot of options there, and that's something that if you're using any text-to-speech tool with students, give them time to play with it, because they need to find the voice that fits best for them. You can start off with the Stephen Hawking voice, as I call it, or you go to one that's really natural. And you have to find that right speed. I've been working with a student who has extreme vision issues, and I keep telling them, all right, we have this tool, because there's no reason you should be straining your eyes to try to read something if you have it read it to you. We know you understand how to read. The problem is you just can't see the words. And so I sat with him for a while, and literally 15 minutes, we went through all the options, because we wanted the best option for him. The nice thing about Snap and Read, which is one reason why I think it would be guided in our district, is because it can also read inaccessible text. So I don't know about you, but our copiers in our school, we can put anything we want in there, it's going to scan it, and can email it to ourselves as a digital copy. The problem is that's a picture. That's not like a high quality PDF where you can actually select the text with your cursor. It's a picture. So technically I can do the same thing with my phone. I can take a picture, put it on my computer. This gives me kind of a crosshair tool. I can select the part I want to read. It'll pick out the text and read it. So this gives me access to inaccessible text, and now my student can read that too. And that's one of those things, that's where our technology has gone, is that, this again, so we pay for it, but we found a big need for it, we're going to pay for it. And it gives that ability. Read and write for Google Chrome, not something we use in our district, but it has that built-in text-to-speech feature along with a lot of other good features. But if you're looking at, we do have these built-in, like on a Chromebook, Chromebox is built into it. You can access the text-to-speech on that. There are other Chrome extensions you can pull in. I got some later on. But I do say that sometimes you have to go with more power. You get what you pay for. So a free text-to-speech reader is going to work well for the easily highlightable text. But if you have something like those copies, and I'm sorry, but a lot of our teachers are still scanning their old documents, I want that accessible for our students, so we have Snap and Read on that. And I can tell you, I spent a lot of time in the last year since we bought it, our license to this, teaching teachers how to use it and teaching students. Because I will tell the teachers that, hey, if you have a student who needs this, just tell me. I'm going to come and I'll work with that student. I want that student to be able to use that technology. I don't know the cost on it, but if you're interested, you get what you pay for sometimes. It was a good purchase. Speak It is another free Chrome extension. You're going to see most of the things I'm going to share with you are either Chrome-based or Chrome extensions. How many people have Chromebooks or other devices? We're a MacBook and Chromebook in our district. Speak It, again, is a very simple one. Highlight the text, it'll speak. Most of these extensions, where you find, they'll be based off of whatever the computer has for voices available. Chromebook does not have as many voice options as a MacBook. But Chromebook did improve theirs. Well, the other nice things with Snap and Read, I guess this is kind of a big one, because of course we have some people say, well, if I have a struggling reader, now I'm hooking them up with Snap and Read, aren't they just going to listen to everything whenever they're going to improve their reading? Well, with Snap and Read, it highlights the word as it reads it. So it's kind of like follow the bouncing ball. You're watching it read it to you, which means that you can work on your skills as a reader while you're listening to it. Because the problem I have is when we say, well, the kid's just going to use it as a crutch. Now, I have a little tangent on that later, because crutches are actually good things. Anybody from the lake should know that. But the thing is that if I have a student in high school, and I'm a high school tech coach, I have a student in high school who can't read at high school level. They're reading down here, but they're in all these classes where they're expected to read every day. I mean, they're even expected to read math class. They're going to fall behind. So, yeah, I have a reading teacher helping them learn how to read more effectively, but while they're still in these classes, I need a tool to help them keep going forward. Because there's no reason why they should have to fall behind, because I'm afraid that they might misuse this. And that's the big thing. We teach the students how to become a better reader, same time we're giving them tools so they can keep up with the rest of their classes. Glasses. A lot of people in here wearing glasses. Glasses are not going to fix your eyesight, but they still make it so you can see. These tools will not fix the reading disability with our student. They're going to just allow them to take in the information that we're expecting them to get in every single class. Because the ones who I'm working with, very intelligent, The reason why he's not keeping up in that class is he can't keep up with the reading. It's not physically possible. So we had to get digital text for him.
Yeah, I can't reinforce this. I mean, I want to jump out of my chair. I didn't know this was interesting to you, Patrick, so I want to talk to you after the session. But at the end of the day, if you're, as Buddy said in the session earlier, if you're reading to learn and not learning to read, the research would say no difference cognitively.
Yep.
No difference. If you're listening to it, whether you're decoding it, no difference. It's about student choice. And again, according to Buddy, and I've seen it firsthand, that choice is so powerful.
I work with one of our reading teachers, and she's working with kids who have identified reading disability. And what we're constantly looking at is if we can't find the text for free, like on Heartland Resources digitally, we're going to Kindle, we're buying it. Because then we can use this to help them read, because they get into the classroom, the kids are reading, and they all of a sudden are a chapter behind after a day. Yep. And so we want them to still be able to do that at the same time they're gaining instruction on how to become a better reader.
This would be good for all your kids. I'm not talking about just your special needs kids too. It's good for everybody. Plus, it removes the stigma, as you pointed out, about your ear for the kids who do need it. If everybody's using it,
and that's
what's your net result, right?
We bought Snap Read for every student K-12 because of that.
Yep, that's exactly the way.
Don't you have increased learning too if you read it and hear it at the same time?
And it also depends if I like visual, I'm a very visual person, so I like to see it as it's reading. In fact, that it will highlight the word as it reads. And that was the update they had over the summer. We're very happy about that as Google released that for Chrome. Because last spring I always said, well, on a Chromebook, it doesn't highlight it. Now on a Chromebook, it highlights it. And that was a Chromebox update, which I was very, our district tech, I was more happy than I was. I have backwards in my school, so. But yeah, no, Staff and Read, I don't normally say paid stuff, but it is one of those apps that we paid for, and every student has it. The other opposite end of this is speech to text, there we go, which is, this again is built into almost every device now. You think about voice dictation, Google Docs has put in the voice typing tool. Now again, when I get people say, well, don't they have to learn how to type? Yes. But if I have a student who now has a cognitive issue or anxiety issue where they have trouble typing because of how their brain works, they can more easily say it, click that button, speak it out. They can go back and fix it. But it's about the fact that we want them to be able to write that down. And so having a Google Doc like this, clicking that voice typing tool, I've worked with a lot of kids who have that anxiety with typing. And even I love writing blog posts. Like I can send out a tweet in 2 seconds. The longer it is, the more official it is, I get a little writer's block. If you just ask me to speak about something, I have no problem with that anymore. So this is kind of one of those things. In fact, it's built into Google Docs. Nice thing with Google Keep on mobile devices. Anytime I'm driving somewhere, like to a conference or something, like there have been times where I'm like, oh, I want to go to Ed Camp. I'll go drive 3 hours to an Ed Camp someday. And I have 3 hours to kill in the car, and I'm already thinking education-wise. Sometimes I'll just get out Google Keep, click the button, and I can do a voice message. It'll automatically dictate that message for me and keep the audio recording. So students can even do this, copy and paste it into their document. Because Google Keep is integrated with every Google app now, so they can do this on their device, and if they have a mobile device, they can put Google Keep on it. They can actually use the voice typing on that, and then when they're on the computer, they just drag that Google Keep note into their document, to their slides, whatever they're doing with that. I kind of just left it to that too for speech to text, because there are a lot of things out there. I mean, I can even just tell Siri to take a note and start talking. And so pretty soon, remember modern Chromebooks you have from your little Android app store, tons of things on there with that. But the big one I see happening is really Google Docs. Having that voice typing tool I think is key, especially for kids who have trouble typing. We had a kid who chopped off his thumb in wood shop, but he still had to turn it in paper. I use my thumb a lot when typing. And when he lost his thumb, it's not like, oh, well, he'll keep going. His whole hand was bandaged. So he lost that hand for a while. That's half a keyboard. So we just talking about using voice typing, he was able to keep up in a lot of his classes, including language arts. Dyslexia is it's a more common than I think a lot of people think. One of the easiest things I think you can try, this has not been shown to work with every form of dyslexia, but it has shown to work with a lot, is the Open Dyslexic font. So this is a Chrome extension, and if you go to my website, the link, and I'll reshare the link, all these images, you just click them, they'll take you to the Chrome store to install the extension. The Open Dyslexic font will replace the font on the website with the Open Dyslexic font. And so this can make it easier for some people with dyslexia to be able to read a digital document or a website or something like that. And you can see that it'll even give you a preview. It's just that it's a font that's been shown for certain types of dyslexia to improve the intake of the information from the website. Beeline Reader is another thing kind of for me on that. It kind of alternates colors of rows of text, and it does a couple other things so that you can focus on the text more easily. There's also the focus mode, which removes distractions. So if you're on a website, there's a lot of tools that do that, but if you're on a website or something with all the flashy graphics and all that, they'll focus on the text. Now you're thinking about your students who are learning how to read online. I understand when I go online that there's going to be all this other stuff. I know how to tune that out. Our students are still learning how to do that. This Chrome extension can work really well with that. The color gradient can make reading faster and easier. Again, it's going to automatically change that on our website. This is one that it didn't work well for me, so I just removed it. It's a Chrome extension. It takes 2 seconds to install, 2 seconds to delete. Mercury Reader is one of my favorites for, again, clearing away the clutter, focusing on the text itself. You talk about your students who are easily distracted. My wife is one of those. You have to teach them how then they can work with that. Because if I'm on a website and I am going to be distracted by the other stuff and I have trouble focusing on the text, I click a button and now I can easily see just the text and the images. Mercury Reader is kind of one it's changed its name one time or so, but it is one of those ones I like really well. Stay focused. Again, a lot of our students and adults have a tendency to go to other time-wasting websites. Stay focused is the way you can actually kind of just say, I can't go to that website for a certain time. You're kind of blocking yourself. I get very disheartened when I hear teachers just complaining about students. They're so distracted. I'm like, but what have you taught them? And one of my biggest things I write out, I have this little poster board, or this little cork board on my desk. It has all these sayings to remind myself. Same thing I did when I was in the classroom. I had sayings on the back wall, so while I'm teaching, I can always look at those and make sure I'm focusing on my main things. One of the things I've written on this corkboard is, you can't expect it if you don't teach it. And so I can't really blame my students for being distracted because the internet is a very distracting place. I know this because, tangents, they're 10 hours. But teach them how to use these tools so they can remove those distractions from themselves. Visor is interesting. So we talk about reading, trying to focus, and we have students who can get overwhelmed by the amount of text they see on the screen. And I think I've seen this with adults too. So again, struggling readers, this could be a very useful thing for certain forms of dyslexia. What it'll do is pretty much have the rest of the screen will be darkened except for your little visor. So you can use that to focus on what you want to. So it's kind of just, I only want to focus on that. So again, I think struggling readers, there's a lot of different tools we put in front of them because we should be expecting them to read because reading's important. But why are we doing it? And we're talking about a lot of digital text. Newsella, one of my favorite things out there because it has nonfiction, or sorry, I was going to say it's whatever we call it nowadays. Yeah, we had that discussion last night. But nonfiction. It has a lot of articles like science and social studies, stuff like that. But be able to change the Lexile level of the article. So all students can get the same exact article, but they might just see different words. And that's something where you can even, if you start this, paid features, the free features I think are most for what you use in most classrooms. But you can see on the upper right there, I have an article here about the Velociraptor. Now you can go through and you can select different Lexile levels to find the one that best fits me. Fits Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. So teaching your students, where are you able to read easily? Let's try a little bit above that. We're constantly trying to get to a higher and higher realm. Our students are going to have to read more and more complex text. So something like this, try the next level up. They can have practice with that. So we have our language arts teachers who are using this. Some of the special ed teachers are using it with their students. I'd like to see this more used in science and social studies classrooms because how many articles are on that. Now, One of the ones, and this one I've been trying to think the most about, because when we talk about a lot of these issues, so I have the hearing issue, and we understand people have vision issues. Color blindness, I think, is one of the most difficult one for most people to understand. And even for me, I have a degree in physics. I taught optics and color, and I taught that to kids who are colorblind. And that's the first time I really thought about that as an educator, is when I got to the optics unit, and I'm talking about combining light sources, and I have a student come up to me in the class and says, Mr. Donovan, I can't really see that well because I'm colorblind. I'm like, oh crap. All right, and I had to think about that because, you know, when people say colorblind, a lot of people think like a dog, everything's great. That's not the case. And so, you think about blue-green color blindness, and there are other forms. 8% of males, 0.5% of females, that's a stat I've tried to memorize. This is a Chrome extension which can allow you to modify the colors on a website to counteract some of the issues caused by color blindness. Because think about red, green, or, you know, talk about red and green. Those colors are used a lot to say, oh, well, they look very different to me. Well, somebody who has certain types of color blindness, they can look the same. And so now my graph, my chart, my text, my highlighting, all that is not really perceptible to them. So color blindness is one I think that it's hardest for people to kind of empathize with because they don't understand it. But here's a Chrome extension, and I've shown this to, I work with a couple teachers who are colorblind. Our district data guy is colorblind, and so he has to create all these colorful charts. So he has a cheat sheet to tell him what color code is which color. Because that's how he sets it up. Because otherwise, how would he know? Because his is a little more profound. Well, my English teacher is colorblind, and so anytime we're talking about colorblindness, I go talk to him. Because we have students who are colorblind, and I need to know if it works for them or not. So he's allowed me to do that. So this one has worked with them. It's called Color Enhancer. Again, it'll change the website, it'll change that, changing the colors on that. Chrome Daltonize is one similar. It will actually give you the ability to perceive what somebody who's colorblind would see. So as a teacher, you can look ahead at that resource. What would it look like to that type of color blindness? And I really want to play with this more. This is one of the new ones I found out about. And that's one of the favorite things right now is I'm researching as much as I can about this. So if you go on my website, you're going to see I'm going to be sharing more and more about this as the year goes on. Chrome Daltonize is one of the ones that I'm just very curious how well it works. And that's the hard thing, is that I had to figure out how to have this conversation with somebody who's colorblind to figure out if what I see is what they see. You know, I can't just show it to them because, well, they won't look any different. So that's one of the things. I'm not going to say all that. I put that in there because it's one easy place to find it. But if you go to my website and get to the slide deck, there are tips on how to design for color blindness. There are tools out there you can adjust graphics. There's a lot of old stuff on color blindness. There's a lot of British stuff on color blindness, which is why color was always spelled wrong in a lot of my resources. So, you know, they put that U there. So there's a lot of things you can do to design for color blindness. 8% of your males. I mean, that means that in a class of 20 or so, you're going to have at least one. 20 males, you'll have one. So figure out who's in there or not. We're going to switch over to hearing. And I'll kind of have a lot of tools. We're going to get to kind of the other aspect of this very soon. YouTube. I love YouTube. But, again, hear very well. So even in the classroom, there's something I would suggest you do. You're playing a YouTube video, you're signing it, click the CC button. YouTube has a built-in closed captioning tool. I mean, it's kind of like the same tools as a text-to-speech tool. It's trying to figure out what you're saying. It's not perfect, but it works really well. If you come to my house and watch anything like Netflix or anything on the TV, closed captioning is always kind of turned on. That's so I'm saving my family from having to hear the volume at which I needed to hear everything. So we can keep it at normal volume, but I can actually read stuff when I don't hear it. One of the things, though, is that YouTube also has the ability to upload your own closed captioning. If you're a teacher who creates resources for your students, you create a YouTube video for them. Yes, it can automatically do the closed captioning. Check it. How close is it? I don't enunciate well at all. I get told this all the time by my wife. So one of the things I would have to do is I put a video up on YouTube for my students. I would go and check the closed captioning. If it's off by a lot, I want to upload my own. And you can see there are options in there, but that's a nice option in YouTube, is that you can upload your own closed captioning so you know the word it shows is correct. Instead of being like you're saying the rules and it puts rutabaga. You know, you want to make sure it's actually going to make sense to them. But that is one of those options in YouTube. You can, and I believe that's what you're going to do, is kind of like transcribe and auto-sync. You can kind of look at the transcript ahead of time, fix things, and upload. You should be pretty good. I'm pretty sure that's still working that way. YouTube has removed some editing tools, but this is one I think they've left in as is. They may change it in the near future. Let me just tell you tips. I can tell you hearing issue students are going to have certain things. One, let the student pick their seat. This is what I think hurt me in elementary school, is that I know my teachers were told to put me towards the front because, oh, well, he can't hear, so he has to be as close as possible. The problem is that the way my hearing works is that I have a really hard time discerning between background noise and the noise I'm trying to focus on. So if you put me in the back, I know I can focus on all the sound in front of me. I have a really bad time in a noisy restaurant or bar or any place like that, focusing on the person in front of me. And they can be like a foot in front of me, but it's because of where else the sound is coming from. So I actually like sitting in the back. I like sitting to the side because it's actually easier for me to focus in on that sound. But again, you wouldn't know if you didn't ask me. So one of the biggest things I can say is talk to your students. If they are, like I said, in elementary school, I could have told my teachers, no, that's not the best place for me. I like it over there. Digital notes, give them to students ahead of time. I don't know why we're still making kids take bundles of notes. I know those studies. I know all the studies out there because people like to share them with me about digital notes and stuff like that. If you see any of the most common study that was shared on Facebook this summer about digital notes, at least on my Facebook, it looked at short-term learning, not actually long-term learning. And it dealt with students who never taught how to take digital notes. Again, you can't expect them to don't teach it. So if I have a student who's hard of hearing or maybe hard of vision, I'm going to give notes to them digitally and allow them to use them. They can still focus in on what I'm saying. If they want to rewrite stuff out, they can. But I don't want to where their disability is making it so that they have to put so much effort into just hearing or just seeing that they can't then use their brain to work over what was being said or what's on the board. So giving to them digitally just makes it so that their brain can focus on what they need to. Recording stuff is great all the time. I'm a huge proponent of the swivel. I always have my swivel handy. Recording stuff so a student can watch it later. It's one of the easiest things you can do for a student. And students, this is one of those things is, if you have a kid who's hard of hearing, it's hard for them to talk in front of others. Because they're going to be self-conscious what they're saying, because it's hard for them to hear what they're saying. Right now, I don't hear that microphone at all. So I have no idea what's coming out of that thing, and you know what I really hate doing is doing whole school announcements at our school. There are times when I have to go on the intercom and say hello, but I don't like doing that because I can hear myself, and so that throws me off. One of my best friends, he had a huge stuttering problem in high school. I mean, it was bad because he was one of my residents. I was an RA in college, so as a freshman, I got to see him then. It was still pretty bad too. He's gotten a lot better as an adult, but I can only imagine him in high school having to give a talk in front of the rest of his class, how bad that would have been for him, how much trauma that could have caused him. Allowing him to record it when he just has to look at the camera is going to reduce that, make it easier. And that's a big thing for that. The shy learner is also one I put into this category. It's easy to see someone who has vision issues or a hearing issue, something like that, somebody needs a little extra help. But we have a lot of students and social anxiety is skyrocketing. But it's not just that, because even when I was in school, we had students who were shy. Well, the reason why they're shy is because maybe they need more time to process. Maybe they don't have that confidence to speak out with others. Maybe sometimes they want to ask in a different way. So as soon as we oftentimes label as shy, there's a lot of ways we engage them in the learning. And I worked with a teacher once, I just told him, like, hey, why don't you try a back channel in your classroom? He's like, why would I ever use a back channel in my classroom? I'm like, I'm glad you asked. Because if you look at your students and you're having a whole group discussion, you're not engaging every learner because some of them don't want to participate that way, or can't, or don't have the confidence to. Give them some sort of back channel. There's a ton of back channel tools. Just give them a Google Doc or something. And that was the best thing I ever did in my classrooms. Is because I gave them another way they could ask questions or to share comments and stuff like that. I noticed those students were now more engaged than ever before. because they didn't want to be part of that big group. And I really honestly think a lot of times some people want time to process. There are times I'm in a meeting with our administration or instructional coaches, and they'll just see me sitting there like this for a while. Because I want to really process before I say something next. Because I may only get one shot to say it. So I'm going to make sure what I say is good. Again, recorded videos instead of presentations. If you have a student with high social anxiety, throwing them in front of the classroom, what we say public speaking is the number one fear out there. It's the number one fear over death. That was me as a kid. Again, speech issues because of my hearing issues, but gratefully I've been able to overcome that to learn how to present in front of other people because I actually like doing that now. I did it at ISTE in front of 1,300 people, and I keep looking at that photograph because I took a photo from backstage looking out to the crowd. Because I'm like, I gotta remember this, because I went from that kid who had very trouble saying S's and T sounds to a kid on stage. Still a kid. But I was able to do that. Shy learner, we're gonna have to think about scaffold. Yeah, it'd be great if they could give a presentation in front of a whole group sometime, but every time in every class I expect to present in front of a group, it's a lot of stress that's going to impact their learning. Make learning asynchronous. Not everything needs to happen at the same time. That's a big thing. Allow students to do things outside of school. I get very worried when there are participation grades. Your shy learners are always going to get a lower score because it's not like they're participating, which they just want to do things a little bit differently. And when I see a student who may have a hearing issue or vision issue lose points because of participation, because of that, it really irritates me. And I have to not go and yell at the teacher. Small group versus large group, break it down to smaller groups. Let them work in small groups and then bring it back to a large group. Gotta give them the ability to do that. Feedback options from students. My students always knew that I gave them ways to give them anonymous questions, feedback, stuff like that. I wanted to know what they thought. And sometimes, I'm not going to say, the ticket out the door type of situation. There are a lot of different ways you can do that with Google Form or whatever, but you can just do a quick check at the end of the day to really kind of see where your students are. Your shy learners are going to be more able to give their feedback that way. Because we say, well, the kid should know how to ask that question. The kid may want to ask that question, but they're not sure how or when, and they're scared of asking in front of others. So how are we helping those students? Now this is the part where I'm going to say more information coming. Because I'm working with Shelly Santiago, who is our district ESL coach, really. She's kind of in charge of that. And we're working together on trying to get this better. With our English language learners, trying to figure out how technology can better help them in the classroom. Of course, you gotta know their specific needs, because every ELL is going to be different. I met with this one student last week, and honestly, I thought he was doing great. But again, when he's switching from one language to another, he's going to have issues in some classes, like biology. I'm a science teacher. Okay, I'm a physics teacher, a few other words. But biology, there are more words in introductory biology course than our first year foreign language course. And ELL in that course is going to have trouble, no matter what. So what's their specific needs? Text-to-speech can work a lot because maybe they have a better time hearing it than reading it. While they're working on stuff, that can make it a lot easier. Visuals, find more things to give them a graphic stuff to understand what that means. Look at ways of simplifying the text complexity. And this is a tough one because we had a teacher, and I'll go to the next one, Google Translate. He took his test and he would Google Translate the test into the native language for the student. So the student would have the English test, he'd have his native language test, so he'd go back and forth. Problem is, in a course like biology, a word can mean many different things. Yay, English language. And so we had the trouble of Google translate the word, but it can only translate once. There are like 5 different meanings for this word, and they didn't pick the right one. So simplifying the text would have made it easier to simplify the question for him and translate it. Don't knock Google Translate. My world language teachers hate Google Translate. I love it because it's kind of really cool, especially if you haven't. Has anybody used Google Translate on their phone lately? Oh, okay, good. Our student has, and that's it. All right, so I say this because, I have a lot of things happening on my phone. All right, so if you haven't yet, there's an app, iOS, and of course Android, Google Translate. Now you turn it on, and one of the cool things about this is I can hit the camera button. And it's not going to take a picture. Instead, it's going to use the camera to automatically translate anything it sees. So the thing I can do right now, I'm going to switch this. I can go up to my presentation right now. It's printed text. Does not work on cursive handwriting. Trust me, I tried translating Ukrainian to English, but it was handwritten cursive Ukrainian. I had no idea what letter they were writing. It was more of a test to see if I could do it or not. And I can hold this above here, and it will actually live translate that word.
That's really cool.
That is something where you give that to an ELL in a classroom, the textbook in front of them, boop, oh, okay. It's going to translate for them. And that is an awesome thing, because I know if I ever go overseas, yeah, I took 3 years of Spanish. I don't remember much. Unfortunately, one of the phrases, and I actually went to Spain. Luckily, it was during the 3rd year, so I probably remembered something at that point. But one of the things that would have helped me would have been able to translate stuff like that. Because for some reason, a lot of the Spanish I remember is very simple, and the only phrase is like, donde están mis pantalones, which is where are my pants? No idea why, 3 years of Spanish, and that's what I remember. So that's a memory for you. There's a great link in there about how to empower ELLs. Well, the biggest thing is do not think of an ELL as a lower level learner. You can't lower expectations. And the best thing you can do with technology is allow students to create ELLs a little different. And that's kind of the conversation I'm having back and forth with Shaley, is how can we do this? Because we actually submitted a proposal for ISTE, and the problem was we had like very little time together to plan this, so we just did, there's a proposal out there, whether or not it's what we present. But it's about how can we better use technology with ELLs. So I do plan to have a lot more stuff for that, so I'm going to do that there. And this is the page where I said there's other stuff too, because I never get playing time. Scribble. Scribble allows you to annotate websites very easily. Again, a struggling reader needs to learn how to help themselves, so teaching them how they can take notes over sections, annotate stuff, and that is very useful. Google Dictionary. Yeah, highlight a word, it tells you the definition. Because we have complex words, we want tools to be able to help our students get to that. Awesome Screenshot is just a screenshot tool. I think that can help a lot of times with struggling readers or students who have organizational issues. These are tools that help them. Announceify, text-to-speech. AT-bar is like a whole slew of accessibility tools. That's the one that you need to play with more, but I threw it in here. I always tell you if it's something I haven't played a lot with. AT-bar is one of those. Read line, it'll read. This is a weird one. It will read word by word to you. Like, you take the whole page of text, it'll go word by word. It'll show you a word at a time for that whole thing. It touts itself as a speed reader app, but for a student, again, may have complexity issues, word at a time to focus. I'm very intrigued by this one. I think it has some possibility in that. High contrast is again for your vision issue students to be able to mess with the contrast. I sat down with my one student who has extreme vision issues, and the first thing we did is we looked at his settings on his computer. We played with his brightness, his contrast, we played with the colors he had, we changed the size of his cursor, we played with everything we could because he really had to personalize that device. That's why I love one-to-one, because a kid gets to personalize the device to match their needs. High contrast just allows you to do that maybe a little bit more on a Chromebook. Chromebook doesn't always have the same features like, say, a MacBook, although there are accessibility features on a Chromebook which you can enable. I just don't have my own.
I was gonna go back to that read line.
Yep.
Do you know, like, what, okay, like, if we plug in different, does it have to be like a Word doc, or can we use?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I think if it's online, you can do it, so even a Google Doc or something like that, you should be able to do. It's one I haven't really played with a lot. But it's one of those, I want to play with this thing. Because I was having a conversation, and this is what popped up on somebody else's website for a accessibility tool, and I think it has potential. Symbol blocker just blocks certain apps. Again, if you have issues like that. All right, 4 minutes. Kind of want more time for talk. Well, not me talk, you guys talk. But anyways, the hardest thing you have to do here, this is kind of where I ended with. And I ended this with my Ignite at ISTE. You guys get the 15 minutes of a 5-minute speech. Is you have to change the mindset of others. Because here's the thing, the student needs a tool to help them learn as best as they can. It doesn't have to be the same tool for every student. I want that student not to learn as well as their peers, I want that student to learn as best as they can. Because if you go back to 2nd grade for me, I switched elementary schools from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, my hearing started to improve at that point. I was able to get rid of the hearing aid. It's not 100%, it never will be 100%, but I was able to at least move away from that. And the big difference was the fact that in third grade, I was able to showcase my talents. Second grade, I was viewed as, well, he can't hear, he can't speak, he must not be doing well. So the thing is, I didn't want to learn as well as my peers, I wanted to learn as well as I could. And it was in third grade that we had timed math tests, something that didn't require anything to do with my hearing. And when I was done with all the timed math tests before anybody else got halfway done, because we had this, like, we had to get through 20 of them or some number of them, and we had a little rubber shark that moved from test to test. And mine was at the end point before anybody got to the second level. That's when teachers started looking at me differently. I mean, because I was able to go from a kid where I know there weren't high expectations from me in second grade. I have a degree in physics, I have a master's of education, and I get to present at conferences. We have to change mindsets of teachers. It's not about the tool for everybody, it's the tool best for them. It's about what can I do to help them. It's about the fact that, no, we don't all have to read the same thing or the same way. What's best for that student? It's about that mindset change. And that's the biggest, most difficult thing in all, because I have been told so many times, well, why should they get special tools? Because I want them to learn as best they can. And I like it to the fact that how many of you were told as students, you'll never have a calculator with you at all times. And we know that's wrong, because I have a crappy calculator in my pocket at all times on my phone. I can go up to my watch and I can ask Siri to go and do calculations for me. I can ask her to do translations for me. I can ask her facts on my watch. So, thinking about that, and thankfully what Buddy said today, you gotta change that mindset. Because I really want students to get to the best they can. Give them the tools to do that, you know. Each kid may be different, but no, that's okay. So, that's kind of where I want to end. A lot of resources on there. Fill up your toolbox when you're dealing with students, try to find that best tool for them. What's the best way you can do it? And again, we put a big district push on a couple things. And you know, we have a lot of like public push on dyslexia stuff. But you know, the snap and read for us is kind of one reason why we had to buy that. But I think the text-to-speech feature is built into it, and it actually does have a text complexity tool built into it too. That's a tool I can teach every kid to use and use in their own way. The fact is, I have teachers using it now for their own learning. That's a really good thing. So, thank you. I think that's 3:50 if I have a thing. Probably that. If you have any questions, please ask them. I'll be around for a little bit. So, but hopefully this helps you out in the classroom.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.